You know, everyone says this. Traveling across Africa as an African can be torturous. And we have tons of stories to back this up.
And it doesn't mean that Africans are not traveling. Quite the contrary. There's been reforms that enable Africans to travel from one country to another. But are these reforms really realistic? Like, seriously?
Hey there, welcome to the 77%. Today we're scooping into the visa and flight stories in Africa. My name is Fatou.
And I'm Rachel. But first of all, guys, before we get into it, follow us on our socials. We're everywhere from YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. Let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah, that's a crucial one. Make sure to do that all the time. We are here on the socials as well to continue the conversation. You know, Rachel.
Absolutely. Now, you know, when we talk about Africans traveling, the experience is always a headache. Imagine needing visas, like 4 visas or 4 flights to travel from one African country to another. It's insane.
Yeah, and Rachel, I have tons of stories, as to that as well. But of course, we have more juicy stories from our colleagues. Samson and them are on standby to give us all the details. So, you know what? Over to you, Samson.
Hi, Fatou. Hi, Rachel. How are you doing? It is not easy with an African passport. Crossing borders feels impossible. Endless questions, long delay, constant stress. Sometimes I even think it is easier to fly to Europe than to move from Nigeria into Benin or Togo, especially at the borders, where my passport feels like a limitation instead of a key.
When it's easy, it's really easy. Like, you're welcomed into a country like you're their family member, and there's this warmth that just makes everything flow. But there are times where it's really complicated, like getting visas, for example. If you're traveling on an African passport, it can feel like you're being treated with suspicion just for wanting to explore your own continent.
So Nairobi flight to Malabo, first of all, I had to apply for a visa, which is $75, which is more expensive than even some visas for outside of Africa. And then the flight cost was so expensive.
Tea for tough. Tea for tough. Fatou, you know a lot about this.
Well, yeah, somehow, Rachel. Let me just start, right? So some few months ago, or a few weeks ago, in fact, we tried to get tickets from Banjul to Freetown. And you will not imagine this. Banjul to Freetown is less than 2 hours, right? And the ticket cost over 500 euros, about 540 euros.
That's a lot.
That's insane for a journey that is less than 2 hours. But not long ago, I was in the UK during the holiday season, and I bought a ticket for 60 euros. And this is for the same flight time of less than 2 hours, right?
And you know, the interesting thing here is that Africa is really very, very big, right? So we can't also deny the fact that it's a big continent.
Yeah.
And we have different languages. We have different cultures, indigenous languages. And, traveling from a Francophone speaking country to an Anglophone speaking country, that in itself is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I was reading something and they said that 72% of the time when you're trying to travel, you will need a visa.
Yes, that's true. And we will have a lot of those visa stories. And some of these, complexities that you've talked about, even Samson really touched on. But, it also just points to the fact that I've had, for example, Seychelles in my bucket list for a very long time. But for some reason, the idea to go to Seychelles has always been far-fetched. And now I want to understand really if there's a footing in this in reality. Because we have Isham, who's in fact in Seychelles to show us around. And I really want to see whether there's opportunity to even see this place in the first place. So, you know what, Isham, just take it away.
Hello, my name is Isham, singer and artist from the Seychelles. And today, I'm going to take you on a tour to my city, Victoria, on this beautiful island of Mahe in the Seychelles Islands. Bienvenue.
Tiny Seychelles is a tropical paradise and magnet for luxury tourists and honeymooners. And for most visitors, the first stop is Seychelles International Airport. Tourism fuels 72% of the country's gross domestic product. Nearly 400,000 tourists came in 2025. Sustained tourism has pushed the Seychelles GDP to around $22,000 per capita, the highest in Africa. The biggest island, Mahe, has some 500 plus hotels, including around 20 to 25 luxurious 5-star resorts.
We are now in the heart of Victoria, and behind me is our very own Big Bang, Seychelles Clock Tower. And very recently, I was performing on these streets for the Creole Festival.
Creole culture unites the Seychelles Islands with music as its pumping heartbeat. Mucho Music even got a UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage nod in 2021. For young musicians like Isham, it's gig heaven in the capital, Victoria. But let's be honest, we're here for the beaches of the Seychelles, and Isham has just the spot.
Welcome to the beach of Constance-Filia, one of the best hotels in the Seychelles. And we, as young musicians, have this great opportunity to play in different hotels, as Seychelles is one of the most famous tourist destinations. There's also another opportunity for us to play our original composition in front of the international guests, where they leave with the songs in their heart.
While Isham entertains on the beach, back in Victoria, nobody captures Creole vibes in art like George Camille. He's a living legend of modern Seychellois painting. Isham swings by his gallery, Kazanana, Pineapple House in Creole.
Kazanana, or Pineapple House in English, is an old colonial wooden house that's I opened as my gallery in Victoria. And the gallery has been running for about 35 years. And hopefully more artists will join the sector, the creative sector.
It's time for a tropical lunch, so Isham dines at Calanor's Takeaway at Unity Roundabout, a trendy local hangout in Victoria.
This is prawns curry in cassava, and this is part of our culture. And it tastes amazing.
The tasty food and island paradise is just a 3-hour flight from Nairobi, Kenya, but it's not cheap. Round trips from Nairobi hit $700 to $1,000, jumping to $1,200 in July and August. Prices out of reach for most visitors from the African continent.
I wish I could see more of my brothers and sisters from the mainland, the motherland of Africa. We are so close, yet so far away.
Isham, I'd like to respond to you personally because I really felt those words. They spoke to me. Imagine if I'm sitting 3 hours away from you, I'm just so close yet so far away.
Yeah.
And that was really heavy. Why don't we just see more Africans on this island?
Seychelles, for example, is a visa-free country. Anyone can go to Seychelles, including all of us Africans, right? That's one thing. But to get there, that's the problem, right? And they also have, all these criteria that you need to fill. You have to show proof of being able to fund yourself. At least what? $150 per day.
For me, I really think that, we have everything in Africa. The Seychelles, which has beautiful beaches. If you go to Kenya, we have good mountains. We have everything there. If you want to see a desert, you go to Namibia or you go to this northern African countries.
Why are we seeing this around the continent? And what are some of the experiences that people have lived? Edith also has so much, to tell us about that because she was right there in Nairobi, your country, to talk to people about this.
My people from the 254, I'm sure. Let's see what Edith has to say about this.
Hello and welcome back to the 77% Street Debate. This week, we are in the heart of Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Now, if you're an African and you've tried taking a flight, then you might have come to the conclusion that traveling intra-Africa is really cumbersome, not to mention expensive. Who better to answer this question for me than actually a mixed bag of people from all over the continent? Diana was joking earlier about traveling, but she travels quite a bit, even though it's very expensive, right? So give me some practical examples, some experiences that you've had where you held your head and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, so I was attending a travel conference in Equatorial Guinea. I noticed most of my African counterparts were actually exhausted. So a friend from Senegal just told me, do you know how many hours I took to fly here? So I expected maybe 4 hours, 5 hours maximum. but he told me he used 20 plus hours. And this is because he had to fly to Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, there was no connecting flights available to Equatorial Guinea. So he had to sleep over for almost 10 hours. That's a 10-hour layover. Then fly again from Ethiopia to Equatorial Guinea, which is like a 7 to 8 hour flight. So you can imagine.
Diana is speaking from the experience of being a travel content creator, but you also have this business where you're helping Africans explore the continent. Are these some of the challenges you're finding?
Yeah, because for my most of my clients, we're booking travels out of Africa, not intra-Africa travel.
So tell me about that. Is it easier or cheaper if I want to go to Germany today than compared to, say, Senegal?
Yeah, it's cheaper. Yeah, it's cheaper because there is someone who traveled from Oslo to Cape Town, Kenya to Cape Town. The flight costs were the same. The person coming from Oslo was actually paying a cheaper flight compared from someone coming from Nairobi to Cape Town. Yeah, so it becomes so expensive. So you find that Africans don't explore Africa.
All right. So, Precious, have you experienced a hint of corruption as you try to cross into East Africa, being a student from Nigeria?
I'm actually scared saying this.
Hey, speak your truth, speak your truth.
But yes, I came and the immigration officer took like my passport, and then he saw I was Nigerian, so he took me one side. I think there's a lot of stereotypes when it comes to Nigerians, and it makes most of us actually scared to actually come here.
Yeah.
And also the visa application.
Let me ask Claude here, because Claude is the true East African son. Because you were born in Burundi, you lived in Tanzania, and now you're studying here in Kenya. What's your experience like?
You reach to somewhere and then an official tells you have to pay something like this. They just deal with cash on cash, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so because immigration has been mentioned quite a bit, let me bring in our expert here. So you know what happens behind those closed doors. What goes through the mind of a policy designer in deciding who is allowed and who's not?
You'll find 3 categories of people who can come into the country. There is a category called referred visa category. And it has countries that are banded on the basis of this is a terrorism-prone area, this is a drug-prone area, this is a human trafficking-prone area.
But sounds to me like it's stereotyping.
Maybe if you listen to the explanation, it would help.
By the way, Dr. Swani is a professor, yeah?
Yeah. So then you have categories which are done even beyond immigration. Actually, this is done by security agencies that would then go through what we call an alert list. An alert list would have people who are being tracked for various things. Now, for my sister there, if you don't fall on that particular category, they allow you entry.
Yeah, it's important that we really come in there, right? Because he was responding to what the Nigerian lady was talking about, and he mentions the visa categories.
Yeah.
Look, I think you don't have to be a Nigerian to know that Nigerians are going through immense discrimination when it comes to travels. You know, the othering that's happening there. Nigerians they have one of the weakest passports, not only in the region, but also globally. Just not long, I realized that a study for 199 countries ranks Nigeria at 89th. And this is 89. Even an improvement from a previous ranking of 94. So you can imagine like what they're really going through. And then he talks about these categories really of, you know, why people impose visa restrictions. When you look at Central Africa, for example, Equatorial Guinea, these are countries that you cannot go to without first getting your visa. You, as an East African, cannot go to Equatorial Guinea
on
without
that note,
a visa.
Fatou, you know, guys, I remember Fatou asking me the other day, like, Rachel, what color is your passport? And I was like, why does that even matter? Why does the color of my passport matter? And then I was like, yeah, it's sky blue. And Fatou told me, you know, in West Africa, it's green.
It's green.
And apparently, if even the color of your passport really determines how much travel you can actually do.
Yes.
Which means that sometimes it's not even about where you're from. It's about the color of your passport. And I'm wondering, like, guys, what color is your passport?
I also want to hear what they've said in the other part of the debate, because
I'm also very curious.
Yeah. We like to know the solutions and the way forward.
Oh, I love the enthusiasm. There's people there. Let me come. Talk to me.
Thank you, Edith. My name is Joy. Did you know that it's 30 to 50% more expensive to travel within African countries than it is to travel abroad? A flight from here to Dubai is more cheaper than a trip from here to Nigeria. Why is that?
I actually have the experts here. These two ladies that you're seeing here are actually captains. So we had, first of all, when you're looking at a map and the airlines that are flying across Africa, it's like a dead space. Why?
the taxes around most African countries are prohibitive. Secondly, right after everyone got their independence, they started their own airlines. And instead of us coming together, making it liberal to travel across all of Africa, what we did first was go to the European countries because we had the bilateral service agreements. So every single country comes up with its own agreement, its own terms, its own taxes.
Ideally, we should be flying across the continent like a breeze. Why are we not?
The discomfort might be we are going to lose our independence. So now we are thinking in silos instead of thinking as the continent itself. Yeah. So maybe in the short term, my country might lose, but in the long term, we will all benefit as a bloc in terms of economically.
Do you see the appetite for traveling reducing once people see, this is the actual cost of traveling? Have you seen potential tourism being taken away from the continent of Africa and somebody saying, I'd rather go to Dubai instead?
Yes, definitely. With my clients, myself, when I started traveling, I used to do mostly Africa. But for the last year, I've been doing outside, going to Asia, going to Europe, because of how easy it is. But in Africa, some countries, you have to go to the embassy where you have so many papers, you're there, you're told, no, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. Okay. Yeah, so that also reduces the morale.
Okay, so let me get some comments at the back.
We need to know that the root cause is partly colonial, because these immigration laws, we sort of got them from them, and we are reciprocating according to the way we are being given. But the Western, and that's why it's easier for the North Americans and Europeans to enter here, they negotiated their way and their laws. And we're talking about African continental trade, free trade area. But it's so slow.
Yeah. Dr. Swani, really quickly, what does it say when African governments make it so slow and still so difficult for other fellow Africans to travel to each other?
We are sending a bad message. We are saying we are still in that silo mentality. We need to move beyond it. I think, for me, the more we break the small territories that we have and look at Africa as a continent faster, the better for all Africans.
Yeah. But do we trust each other as Africans? Let me ask a question. Do we trust each other? Do we trust each other?
I think for us as Africans, it's time we started seeing ourselves as Africans instead of Kenyan.
Tell us where you're from.
I'm from Ghana. Yeah. So if we... Thank you. So I think we should see ourselves more as African, because basically everything we do in Kenya, in Uganda, we do the same in West Africa. So how about we see ourselves as a collective Africa instead of a divided Africa? Yeah. So I think it's a question of unity.
Okay, and what do you guys think? Let me hear from you.
We have a problem with xenophobia, where it's shown up in South Africa with Nigerians. In Kenya, it's slowly growing up with between Kenyans and Somalis. Blame the AU, blame the government, but are we open to open our borders to our fellow Africans, to us? The African Union rolled out the African Union passport. Yeah. Now, I'll ask in the Kenyan context, why are we not adopting that passport?
I don't know if Dr. Swani can answer this question for us, but you're the best placed person to. What happened?
These are negotiations that are done. And when people somewhere agree in Addis Ababa, this is what we are going to do, I don't know if Kenya is resonating with it. I don't know if another country is resonating with it. So sometimes I wonder, these treaties, are they piece of papers, or we need to move ahead and implement some of those things?
Good point. So there's a serious gap between policy and implementation. All right, Diana, you're the African whose policies are being built for and around. What would delight you about traveling in Africa? Essentially, what would make you happy about a connected Africa?
Free movement, of course, that will be very nice. And for me, what I think will take us a step further can be cross-border marketing. Every country is marketing their own. Tembea Kenya, visit Rwanda, the Cape Town one. What if we do cross-border? Because we want interest. But now when I come to policy, when I was at the African Tourism Board, it got to a point I was so tired of attending conferences where it's One Africa, Borderless Africa. But we talk. The conferences last 10 hours over 3 days, but we're always back to the drawing board. Yeah. No progress.
That's fair enough. Okay, so what needs to be done for Africa to be borderless? At the moment, that doesn't seem to happen because IATA says that Africans only make up 2% of global international travelers. Perhaps after implementing some of these suggestions, that could change. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.
I mean, it's a lot of interesting points there. And I think it's the perfect conclusion to this debate. How can we unify as one? It has been projected long since that a unified Africa, an African passport, would contribute immensely to every economic spectrum, in the continent. Why is it not happening? Why is this process lagging? It's part of the Agenda 2063, but it is still not being realized.
But are we going to be there in 2063? Fatou, we will be grannies
I
by
want to
then.
be alive by then,
like,
right?
I just don't want to be like I'm 63 and all of a sudden I can travel from Nairobi to the Banjo,
Yeah.
But guys, please make sure to watch the full version of that street debate on YouTube. We're already having comments coming in.
Read them out.
Yes, and somebody here said that it's really unfortunate that Africa rates the lowest in intercontinental trade, yet we have so many resources.
And when you look at the corridors, we also experienced this in West Africa, the Senegambian corridor. Of course, I have seen firsthand how business or traders struggle just to cross over from Banjul to Senegal. And these are our neighbors, right? And they've always said that there is effort to make this a seamless process, but it has been hectic.
In Kenya, we have the Kenya-Uganda border. There's always stories about, truck drivers having these horror stories. So beyond the pleasure and leisure, we need to talk about the experiences that truck drivers actually go through. So have a look at this report.
The Northern Corridor ranks among Africa's most vital trade routes. Every day, trucks haul fuel, food and machinery from Kenya's Mombasa port to Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan and beyond. Over 40,000 truck drivers power the regional economy. 37-year-old Paul Walusala is one of them.
As children, we often competed by selecting which cars we liked. It was then that we began asking each other what we wanted to do when we grew up. I said I would drive a semi-trailer one day.
Today, he sets off on a 1,700-kilometer journey from Mombasa to Malaba, the busy border crossing into Uganda. But first, Paul runs through his safety checks, reviews the journey plan, and assesses risks on the route ahead.
They hand me consignment documents to review, and once I've confirmed the documents are in order, I drive to the port.
Paul drives for Nathaniel Game and Co., known as NATO. The company launched in 2017 and now employs over 150 drivers.
We are vibrant and we also want to see it grow. So in terms of personal to young people, the opportunity for them to be employed.
The Northern Corridor Transport Coordination Authority reports that through the corridor reached over $2 billion in 2023. But crossing these borders is anything but simple. Delays often stretch into days, sometimes weeks.
It's very difficult to move in Africa. Some of the issues are the barriers that are always at the border.
Yet, despite these obstacles, hope remains. The company also invests in training, helping young workers meet international safety standards. For Paul, this job connects countries and supports his family.
There are a few challenges, like the children missing me because there are days I travel and I'm away for a while. The time I spend with them is limited, yet they would love to spend more time with me. But they are happy with my work.
Interesting.
It's a sad one,
It's a sad story.
People just want to make a living. People just want to exist.
Fatou, in my community, I will always be described as a Murema girl.
What is that?
Do you know what Murema is? It means mountain. So it means I'm a mountain girl. I like the mountains and all these things. Are you team mountain? Are you team beach?
Girl, I'm from the river Gambia. I'm all for like the river, the sea, the beach, and the vibe.
Yes.
Why would I just kill myself to hike? I don't like hiking. I mean, in Scotland, it's something that I never did. I don't know. For me, it's just exhausting. I can just lay on the beach and just.
So this story then maybe will really resonate with you because this coming story is about surfing in Liberia. And when you think about surfing, you always think about Australia, Hawaii, but I never really thought that we could surf in Liberia. So so let's have a look at this report.
Let's find out.
When I'm surfing, I feel like I'm home. I never panic, I feel relaxed. Because I know my ability, I go for the wave that I feel like I can handle any wave in this country.
Philip Panini and his friends in Robertsport, Liberia don't just surf for sport. They surf to stay off the streets and out of trouble.
Surfing can help a lot when it comes to dealing with emotions. Like when you are sitting home, you feel trouble and you don't feel like talking to anybody. If you grab your sailboat and come into the ocean, you forget about everything that happened.
Some of Africa's best waves break right here, especially in the rainy season. 20 years ago, no one in Robertsport surfed. The community started in 2003, just after the Civil War. Travelers brought boards and shared the sport. Local kids picked it up. One of them is Irene, the community's first female surfer. They call her Butterfly for how she moves in the water.
I tell them, some of them come to me and say, I like your style. I want to be an international surfer. Like one of these days, I will travel. So it's all my big dream.
For now, Irene and her surfer mates are riding the waves.
Wow, that looks super cool.
So cool.
It's about time maybe we visited Liberia. Who knows?
It is about time, but like Rachel said, do you know what? Follow us on our social media platforms and be a part of the conversation. On Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe right here because we will be coming with banging topics every single time.
Every single time, guys.
I was Fatou.
I am Rachel Nduwati. Until next time.
Bye-bye.